Hi, I'm Marcos Alcozer, and this is K-12 Analytics Engineering. Today we're going to be talking about how to install data import in Google Cloud. Data import recently hit a 1.3 release that has a ton of exciting things packed into it. The big one being .NET Core migration. This means that you can now run data import in Linux containers on container as a service offerings in Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud. Google Cloud has a really great one called Google Cloud Run. It's the one that we've used on this channel to deploy Ed5's admin app and web API. 1.3 has also added support for Postgres, which is awesome. So in the other videos in this channel, when we've deployed Ed5, it's always with a Postgres ODS. That is the database system that I recommend. I recommend you stay away from the high licensing costs of SQL Server. Use Postgres for implementations of all sizes. And so we can now use data import because we have container support, we have Postgres support, and so we're going to jump over to the machine and we're going to look at our Google Cloud project and we're going to run through the steps to add data import to it. Here we are on our Google Cloud project. This video is very much a continuation of a previous video where we deployed Ed5 in Google Cloud using this Ed5 on Google Cloud installer, where we clicked on Open in Cloud Shell. And so if we look at our project, we have things like a Cloud SQL instance running Postgres that currently holds our ODS, admin, and security databases. If we go to the top and we search Cloud Run, and we go to Cloud Run, we see two of our services, one of them being the Ed5 API. And if we click on the URL, we see we are running 5.3 with TPDM core on it. So we are going to now deploy data import. I have this GitHub repo here, which I'll link in the show's description. I'm going to copy the URL here, go into my Google Cloud project, and activate Cloud Shell. Here I am in Cloud Shell, and I can see that it's already set to my project K12 Data 1, but it tells me if it wasn't set, I would run this command here, gcloud config set project. But I'm good, it's set, so I can run git clone, and I can paste in the URL. So let me get that URL again there. Okay, clone down that repo, and I'm going to cd into it now. So now I have, let me clear this. I've got my data import repo cloned, and I'm going to go through and run a few steps. So I'll skip this first one. I've got my project already set. I'm going to create a database on my Cloud SQL instance called Ed5 data import. So I'm going to run that. Good to go there. I'm going to now enable an API for Artifact Registry. So let's run that, and then let's go to Artifact Registry. Artifact Registry is the new name for Container Registry. Container Registry is where you used to push your Docker images to in Google Cloud. Well, they've renamed it to Artifact Registry because you can now push other things in addition to Docker images, NPM packages, Python packages, etc., etc. So I'll go here and run the next command to create a repository here. Run that, click refresh along the top right. I now have a data import repository, format Docker. There's nothing in it, but I'm going to push a Docker image to it next via this command. This command, when we run it, is going to build the Docker file that's found in the data import folder. This is a modified version of the one that the Ed5 tech team wrote. I just made a few adjustments to it, and so I've got the new one here. It's going to build this, and it's going to copy these other two files in, such as the app settings.json one, which holds the connection string for our database that's in our Cloud SQL instance. So let me go back, copy this command, run this, and let it build the image. All right, so that finished. So if I click refresh top right again, I will see here's my new image that was just created called data import. Awesome. So we are going to move on to the next step, which is to deploy a new Cloud Run service. So it's gcloud beta run deploy. We're going to call that service edfi data import. We're going to use the image that we just created. We are going to connect the service to our Cloud SQL instance. We are going to tell it to listen on port 80. That's the port that data import in the container is using. We're going to run it in this region, give it a couple vCPUs, a gig of memory, set the concurrency. We're going to let it spin down to 0. So when we're not using it, there are no instances and we don't get billed, but I'll show you an adjustment you might want to make later. And we'll let it go up to max instance 1. You can adjust this as needed. Allow unauthenticated because data import has its own authentication. We're going to set up some environment variables, both pulling from text, but also pulling from our secrets that we created previously in our edfi installer. And this is actually a really good best practice to highlight. So I do not store a secret I do not store a sensitive value in an environment variable in my container using this update env variables, because then it would actually be seen in my Cloud Run configuration. Instead, what I do is I use this set secrets command, and that uses Google's secret manager, where you can create a secret and store a value in an encrypted way. And then when the container launches, then it stores it from there as an environment variable. And you're not storing a text string in your Cloud Run service of a sensitive value. So that's what that's doing. I then tell it to use the service account we used previously when we deployed edfi, and I use platform managed. So let's run this. So we'll let that do its thing. And if I go back to Cloud Run, what we're going to see now is a third service pop up. Great, so we have our edfi admin app, we have our edfi API, and then we now have our edfi data import. It looks like it's already done deploying. It gave me a HTTPS endpoint automatically. I click on that. It's going to load the container. Here I am on data import, so I can go ahead and register and create an account. Let's see. And register puts me onto the main screen where I can then manage my edfi API connections, authorize it with the edfi template sharing service, and get to work. One thing that I want to note with the default configuration is if I go under revisions and I look at the container and I look at CPU allocation, it says CPU is only allocated during request processing. So what does that mean? That means that Cloud Run is going to spin down to 0 and not bill me when it's not being used, and then it's going to spin back up when I am using it. That's really great for admin app, and that's really great for web API. It's okay if you're using data import to manually run certain workloads to import some data into your edfi API. But if you're setting up a schedule and you want things to run on their own without you actually interacting with data import, then this likely isn't going to work for you. What you're going to need to do is edit the deployment, go down to CPU is always allocated and says you are charged for the entire life cycle of the container instance, and then set the minimum number of instances to 1. And so what that's going to do now is it's going to ensure that there's always a container instance running for your Cloud Run service so that that scheduler works even if you are not at your computer and you're not in data import. One more disclaimer, I am new to data import. 1.3 is my entry point now that it has .NET Core support in Postgres. And so this configuration I think is a really solid initial configuration, but I have not used it in production yet. And so please test it out. Please reach out if you have any issues. I'd be happy to help you troubleshoot anything that may arise. And then I'll do an updated video of lessons learned after using data import. Hopefully you found that helpful. Please hit like and subscribe down below, and you'll be notified of new videos as they come out.